And with that, we will move on to the next session, which is the AI-enabled organization. With this session, I would like to welcome Eric Brynjolfsson back to the stage as the moderator. And the panelists for this session are Nicole Jordan, Managing Partner of Markets, Clients, and Industry with Grant Thornton, Sophie Vanderbroek, the Vice President of Emerging Technology Partnerships with IBM, and Gabby Zijderveld, Chief Marketing Officer of Affectiva.
Sophie, got your own water?
Yes, my own water.
Gabby,
Thank you.
So hello again, and what we're going to do now is dive a little more deeply into some of the business implications. We have 3 experts here, all of them with interesting perspectives and names that are as difficult as mine, so I think that's a good combination. What we're going to talk about is some of the ways that AI is enabling new ways of doing work, some practical advice, but also some amazing things that I know that each of your companies are doing. We want to see some of that. And as before, we want to get there's a lot of intelligence in the room right here. We want to get some of your questions and insights, questions that you may have for the panelists. So in a little while, you can start lining up at the microphones, and I'll mix in some questions from you as well as mine. But while we start with you, Gabi, we just heard Daniela talk about things that humans can do, the human touch. In my talk, I talked about emotional intelligence and companies like Aura Health that are doing that. But I know you guys at Affectiva are giving a more nuanced answer to that. And one of the things I learned whenever I did research with Andy, whenever we thought that there was something that machines couldn't do, there was somebody, probably at the Media Lab or CSAIL, that was working on helping them do at least part of that. And so tell us what you're doing at Affectiva to help give machines some level of emotional intelligence.
Yeah, absolutely. So Affectiva, just for context, Affectiva spun out of MIT Media Lab in 2009. It was co-founded by Dr. Rosalind Picard and Dr. Rana El-Kalyoubi, who today is our CEO. We basically started or created a new technology category of artificial emotional intelligence, or emotion AI as it's known. And simply explained, it's software that can analyze human faces and voices to infer complex and nuanced emotions, as well as cognitive states such as drowsiness and distraction.
So they analyze with the camera, they look at people and then see what they're...
so our software can take access to cameras if if permission is given. And why don't we actually demo this? It'd be maybe
you have a demo here?
Yeah, so let's see if we can get the demo up on the big screen here. And I will hand it to you, Eric. See if you can center that.
Oh, you're going to you're going to read my emotions?
You do have to look at the camera.
Okay, I can't look up there. No, I'll look down here.
Exactly.
Okay.
Surprise. So this is a very simple demo app, but essentially the software, the app, uses the camera on the iPad.
This is fun.
Identifies a human face in the image, landmarks on the face, and then basically by analyzing facial muscle movement, we can derive expressions, and combinations of expressions can make up emotions. There's also appearance that one can detect.
Sorry, I'm making faces.
You should. This
is a great toy. I think you should make this available to kids.
It is available. It's actually in Google Play and on the App Store. Just search for Affectiva. The app is called AffDex.me. It's a free app.
We can just, like on our phone or something?
Yeah, if you want to play around with it. Again, it's very basic, but it basically discovers in real time
That's cool.
Human emotions.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
All right. So how is, aside from the amazing amusement value of it, tell us about how that is helpful in business.
Yeah, absolutely. So when the company first got started, the early adopters of this technology, surprisingly maybe for some, was media and advertising, where today...
That seems to be an early adopter of a lot of AI. Huh?
It's true. About 25% of the Fortune Global 500 use our technology today to basically test media content, ads, TV programming, and by assessing how target audiences respond to that content. So we can measure frame by frame.
So people would watch a show and then sometimes they'd be happy or angry or
Yeah, but
whatever.
it's especially very helpful data to help them optimize their content or even make decisions on media placement. So
and are these people in like a focus group, I imagine?
No, actually it's all mostly done online. which is really important because that can allow them to bring it to scale. Now you can test things in multiple countries with hundreds of people at the same time.
A little scary, though. So they're kind of able to really hone their messages to understand exactly what pushes my buttons.
Well, and they've been doing that with techniques such as survey and the dial already, but those were fairly
I've seen those
inaccurate,
dials
right?
that, this is obviously much more.
This is more of a scientific, quantified approach. As a company, though, we have a vision that this technology will be ubiquitous one day, and we also believe that there's potentially life-changing applications of this technology, especially in healthcare, where today there's already interesting research done in areas of Parkinson's disease detection, supporting people with autism. So there's a really cool company in Boston out of Harvard called BrainPower that creates programs using Google Glass and our technology to teach kids on the autism spectrum how to respond and engage with emotions. There's a facial...
So they would teach them how to recognize the machine would actually tell them, this person is interested.
Yeah, Eric is smiling, and then they get audio and visual feedback that says, why don't you smile back?
A lot of my colleagues could use that. I could use that.
True, very true. So that could be the future of the work, right? But there's also another cool example, a facial reconstructive surgeon at Mass General who's using our technology to benchmark how well they do in rebuilding smiles for people that have had facial trauma. So there could be some really meaningful impact, suicide prevention and mental health as well, where today the best way we quantify this is you walk into a doctor's office and on a scale of 1 to 10, how depressed are you? Whereas we can measure all other vital signs. So.
How does it compare to a human doing the same thing? Have you tested, having a person, a poker player saying, do you think this person is bluffing? Or do you, a doctor saying this person was depressed versus the machine?
Yeah, so we absolutely don't strive to do things such as lie detection. Frankly, most of us at the company don't even believe you can do lie detection just by measuring someone's face. It's much too complex. And
but what about, let me set that one aside. But just say like detecting depression or happiness, setting aside those of us who have on the autism spectrum and focusing on just, average, a regular person versus this, would it be similar?
Yes, but it also depends, I think, on the situations and also in terms of having access to human care, for example, in the case of mental health, right? Because that's not always the case, and you might have to have remote access to that care as well. Important point, though, I think in many situations we're not necessarily advocating that a machine could do this better than humans. We think of this more as a human and AI partnership.
Okay, like Daniela was talking about.
Right, exactly. And then automotive is a great example where we're doing a lot of work there right now in driver state monitoring, detecting things such as drowsiness and distraction.
Great.
So that you can alert and notify people.
So there might be like a little camera on the rearview mirror or the windshield that sort of keeps track of.
Yeah, next generation vehicles will have multiple cameras and looking at that stuff.
Okay. Let me get Nicole into it for Grant Thornton. And I'll go in a little different direction. So one of the things that you may have heard when Eric Schmidt and I were talking just a little while ago, the first thing he talked about was these networked enabled companies and how they led to power laws, and there was some discussion of winner-take-all effects. And there are a lot of people who think that in an AI economy, a networked economy, it's all the big companies are going to have a complete advantage. But I know you've been working with a lot of mid-market and smaller companies. How can they compete in this kind of a world?
Absolutely, Eric, and thank you for having me here today. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. We definitely see AI as an opportunity to level the playing field between large companies and mid-sized organizations. It no longer requires a multi-million-dollar budget to get AI started in your organization. And one of the examples that we see working very well is in mergers and acquisitions today. The M&A environment is one that in the past had been very human workforce oriented, very labor intensive, to be able to monitor or analyze all of the reams of data associated with acquisition targets. In today's environment, if you want to, for example, monitor 30 acquisition targets, set up your AI platform, and it will scan and monitor millions of data points 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And when it comes to companies and trying to gain competitive advantage, it is all about speed and accuracy. And AI enables a company to increase their speed, increase their accuracy as it relates to acquisition targets. And being first to the deal, first to the table, matters a lot when you're talking about growing at the top line. So we've seen situations where if you take, for example, monitoring a portfolio of 30 acquisition targets over a period of time, you can scan important data points, again, millions of data points, such as patent filings, such as regulatory findings, citations, maybe from self-regulatory organizations, customer feedback, culture, employee engagement. All of this can be scraped from various sites today, and the power of it is to collect all of the data into one place and serve it up to you in what we see as a dashboard every morning, so that you begin your day with the analysis already having been done related to the companies that you're focusing on. Over time, the AI is able to develop and monitor trends, patterns, make recommendations to you for potentially other companies to put into your acquisition portfolio. So Eric, it really is all about speed and accuracy and being able to analyze a lot of data that we didn't historically have the opportunity to bring together into one place.
Yeah.
It was very human-driven, very kind of paper.
I assume it's not like we switch it on and it starts acquiring companies for you. There's still a person in the loop. Tell me a little bit about one of the metrics you talked about was culture. I get sort of counting patent filings and all the financial stuff. What kind of metrics does it look at for measuring culture? How do you do that?
A number of metrics there, and this is all really being monitored by a number of different sites that measure a company's culture. Employee feedback is readily available today.
Like through Glassdoor?
As an example, yes. So they are rating companies based on the loyalty of their employees. Would they recommend their company to their friend as a place to work? How engaged are their leaders? How true are their culture, their values, their behaviors, outcomes?
We all see the Uber drivers or Airbnb hosts being rated. We all, books or whatever. Now companies can be rated in terms of whether it's a place people would like to work or, I guess, be acquired.
Absolutely. So when you bring that data point together with all of the other data on customer feedback, on patents, on regulatory, all of these things together, there are a number of factors at play, but all of it together can be a very powerful engine and asset for a company in today's environment.
Would you say, let me try this question. When you look at the companies, do you get more of a vertical ranking, like this is a better company or worse company, or is it more of a horizontal ranking, like this is a good acquisition for you and this is a good acquisition for this other company? So is it more a matter of finding the right fit for different people or finding the gems that other people don't see, or is it both?
I think it's both. The way we see it working today is you're starting with the company's strategy. What are they trying to achieve? And what are the potential acquisition attributes that they're looking to bring into their organization? And once you have got that set up, the AI over a period of time then will be able to serve up recommendations for you for maybe additional acquisition targets or the comparison of a peer group. So developing patterns and trends. We saw one example in the financial services industry, large organization wanting to acquire companies in the payment card industry. And when you monitored that particular sector over a period of time, you could see company A had a new product launch. And then they're self-regulated, so the payment card industry data security standards issued a citation to company A. Company B, a few months later, had a new product launch. They, in turn, had a citation issued. And you could start to see this pattern developing. And it's all about bringing it back to how does that impact the value of that acquisition target? How does that impact the risk of that acquisition target? So the data enables you to make a faster decision on value and risk.
How long have you been doing this?
This is relatively new.
Okay. So you don't have like a track record you can say that you outperform the acquisitions that people did the other way? Or can you?
We're monitoring for that, Eric.
We'll
but
loop back to a year
over
from now.
time, yes, absolutely.
Great. Sophie, IBM is doing so many amazing things in this space, but you and I were chatting about one that sort of struck a chord, because I have 3 sons who love debate.
Yeah.
And there's obviously a lot of human element in that, but tell me about the project you guys have at IBM with the debater.
Yes, I would be delighted to do so. And in fact, I brought a picture. If the slide can be shown here, that would be great. Yeah, so as we all know, and thank you again also for having me, it's a pleasure to be here. Daniela really got the mood very positive again with all the opportunities for AI.
Right.
Today AI is real and can do amazing things, whether it comes to clustering and classification of images, so we can detect whether somebody has cancer or not, or whether this related to prediction, all the examples you were given, or whether it's related to automating processes like EasyPass, or there are many processes that used to be really manual processes. A lot of those have now been automated, processing healthcare claims, etc. So in this clustering, automation, prediction, AI has a lot of real-world applications, and we can talk about.
And you want to bring up a video or
Yes.
slide? If we can bring that up on the screen.
Yeah, they should show it on the screen.
It's on this screen. Maybe it's not on that screen, though.
And so one of the things that I thought, which we haven't heard about
It's not on
much,
the big screen. I don't know, the AV folks, we see it on the monitor in front of us, but not behind us. So, okay.
Yeah, can somebody ask the team
I think
members?
they can
Because
hear
I'm going to
us,
show
yeah.
a video of a machine that can actually debate humans, which is really cool.
exciting.
There we go.
The researchers in our Haifa lab, working with researchers across the globe for 7 years, invested in technology to truly understand natural language processing, reasoning. And so we trained the system with a huge amount of knowledge and information. And then it goes in and it's given a new topic. And this in June, we gave it a topic. It was the first time we showed it with outsiders in the room, non-IBMers in the room, right? So just like here, we could say, okay, the topic was, should the US subsidize space exploration? Can I get a show of hands of who thinks the US should subsidize space exploration? Okay, what would you say, about 60% of us in the room?
Yeah,
here?
I think so.
It's a
Well, how many people are
high-techy
opposed? Do you want to
audience?
get the other side? How many people think we shouldn't subsidize
And
space
use the money for
exploration?
something else, right?
This is a very
yeah,
tech
so this is
company.
clearly
It's like
high-
2 or 3. Okay, well,
Okay,
you have a debate on that?
This woman, Noah, is the champion debater in Israel. And she came to San Francisco, this was debate in San Francisco, debated the machine on this particular topic. And the way this works, and I've shown a little video, it doesn't explain it very well, it's only a minute and a half, or a minute and 40 minutes. It's each gives an opening statement of 4 minutes. So you get this new concept, the computer quickly has to collect arguments for 4 minutes. Each of them does that, and then the computer listens to her arguments and has to make a rebuttal speech addressing her arguments of what was right or why the computer disagrees with it, and then there are closing speech of about 3 minutes. Let me show you.
You want to run the video now?
Yeah, I'll
okay,
run the
let's
video
do that.
now.
Real world problems, a lot of times they don't have a clear bottom line win, otherwise we wouldn't debate things.
According to rules set by the candidates themselves,
What we are trying to accomplish here is really to demonstrate that we can have a meaningful and valuable discussion between man and machine.
We are actually trying to show that a computer system can add, if you want, conversation or decision making by bringing facts and doing a different kind of argumentation.
Hello, Dan. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today.
The debater system tries to understand the concept over which we are debating.
Having analyzed the data, I will argue that we should subsidize music education.
When it gets the topic, until you hear the first speech, it's collecting all the possible arguments, trying to remove redundancy.
It is about recognizing important issues for society.
The system is evolving.
The IBM debater can have all the opinions in the world, but IBM debater does not pay taxes, and we do.
You are speaking at the extremely fast rate of 218 words per minute. There is no need to hurry.
The value of the technology is really to allow decision makers to take more informed decisions. There is a territory which is uncharted to some extent, and this is where we are now.
Thank you for listening.
If you're interested, there are longer segments on YouTube, or you can go look at it.
So just to be totally clear, you're not a hologram. You're a real person here on this panel.
Yeah, no, I'm not a hologram. I'm a real person.
But so the debater, I mean, it seems trivial. You could do an opening statement canned in advance, so that...
No, not in advance,
No?
because the debater hasn't heard about the topic.
Oh, they haven't heard the
They're
topic
not
yet.
trained on the specific
How much time
topic.
do they have to prepare their topic?
A couple minutes, whatever,
Really?
like in a regular debate, yeah.
Wow.
3-5 minutes maximum, but the debater
So
does
they're
it faster
told the
than
topic,
human.
and then it has to create an opening
Yes,
statement.
exactly. Same for the human,
And
right?
then it has to, when it hears the other side, it has to respond, sometimes with humor.
With humor, yeah, of course,
yeah.
we program some of that in, because humans are very good at humor, but computers traditionally are not so good, so yes.
That's amazing. And part of it, I mean, I guess this is a nice demonstration in debate, but it sounds from the video, it's also part of it is to be able to have a dialogue where you are not just debating for a show, but like you might be in a boardroom deciding whether to do an acquisition or something.
Exactly.
And you want to have the machine explain the pros and cons of a particular position in a kind of more human-like way.
And you can use this system, let's say, to look at both sides. Let's say you are a machine here today.
I'm not, but just to be clear, yeah. Of course, I would say that if I was a machine.
You take one viewpoint, and then I try to debate with you, and then you can actually switch it. You can take the other viewpoint and come up with all the best arguments. So the other
Yeah, that's
thing,
what we do when we're playing chess. You know, you start losing, and then you switch sides. You say, okay, now you take the losing side.
but of course in chess there are fixed rules, right? Many of these games have rules you have to play by.
Right.
Debates are totally open-ended, right? It's very complicated.
Well, not totally open-ended. I mean, I think that's part of what makes it. I mean, there should be some rules about what's fair and what's not fair and what's out of bounds, right?
There should be. I mean, they can come up with all kind of arguments. It's not that you have to play the game a certain way.
Well, let me ask it a different way. When the machine is learning to debate, do you see it as more of a sort of a rational, factual set of debate? Like, here's the reasons. Or there was a little humor in there. I mean, you could play dirty and use tricks in debating that sort of win over the audience or whatever, but aren't really part of the logical flow.
In fact, what we noticed we did, we probed the audience. They each could say after the debate, so has your opinion moved to one side or the other, right? Versus before the debate. And we did 2 debates. In one debate, the human moved the opinion a little bit more to her side. In the other debate, the computer moved the opinion. So it was kind of a wash about who won the debate. But that's not the purpose of this technology.
Right.
But where the debater won by far was the question, who improved most of your knowledge about the subject, the facts, right? Who improved it the most? The computer won by far. The other question was, who moved you more emotionally, right? And the human won by far about emotional arguments she and he were able to
Interesting. Well, I'm going to want to bring in Gabi in a minute, but I just can't. I want to ask a little bit more about how this works. So does it tap into some knowledge base from Wikipedia or something? So if there's a debate about space exploration, where does it get the knowledge so that it can make factual arguments?
So it's been trained on all publicly available knowledge like Wikipedia.
So it searches the web?
Also, of course, you need to have the latest news, like LexisNexis and other news content that we...
Do you have some kind of check that there's not false news mixed
so
in with
we make sure we look specifically at the news that's not fake news.
But
to
that's
make
hard.
sure that
That in and of itself is a whole problem.
That in and of itself is obviously hard. But for example, there was another debate on whether or not the audience liked autonomous cars, right? Whether autonomous cars should be deployed more quickly. But right, like a couple days before, there was this accident that Tesla had, and it really changed the whole mood. The fact that there were some recent accidents.
Because
So
the
being
first
able
accident, yeah.
yeah, bring that into the debate is important.
Wow, that
but
is just
yeah.
amazing. That's really breathtaking. I think next year we should try to have at least one
Yeah,
robot
here
up
with
here
us on the
it.
panel.
Robot
Why not?
debating the debater.
Yeah, that would be amazing. So we'll put that on our to-do list. And I want to encourage you now, if you want to start lining up on the microphones, we'll get your questions as well. But Gabi, she teed you up very well. We also want to see how it could be used in your areas, Nicole, about the emotional side. So this is a very fair, rational debater is supposed to be, I guess. Yeah. But how much more powerful would it be if it could detect the emotions of the audience and of the other person? Could you imagine sort of having a real-time system that tested its arguments and played on our emotions as well as our reason?
Yeah, absolutely. So in human-to-machine interactions, and this is an example of that, right now on the machine side, there's massive amounts of cognitive capabilities with all these advanced AI systems and hyper-connected technologies around us. And as we like to say, there's lots of IQ, but no EQ. For the most part today, these technologies are not aware of how the humans are responding to them, what their emotional state is. Yeah. Maybe they're frustrated, maybe they're disinterested. All these human signals are very important in allowing a system to adapt in an appropriate and relevant manner.
Yes.
And that's why also today many of our transactions with technologies and maybe car agents and interactive systems in cars.
So we should put our two systems together, and
the
computer can see if the debater is getting upset or angry or happy.
Exactly, and adapt accordingly,
yes,
right?
And
it's not just measuring what's going on, but it's adapting in a relevant and appropriate manner.
Totally.
And you could see an AI debater taking advantage of that insight too, right? Then the humor aspect, like, I see you're getting a little testy there, right? Or something like that. Yeah.
Right, and there's a system also out of the Media Lab that Sandy Pentland and his team did that listened to call centers.
Yes.
That listened to just the voice. There was no vision, but some of the callers.
There's a company, Cogito, in the Boston area as well. Really interesting what they're doing.
And sometimes when you talk to folks in the call center, you start getting more and more frustrated, and they tried to pick up the tone in the person's voice before they exploded and said, maybe we should
what they're
de-escalate here.
is helping the call center agents so that they can kind of de-escalate and make sure that it doesn't spin out of control, and also for coaching and guidance purposes. But ultimately, our belief is that there really is a need to humanize technology because it's just going to make our interactions with these systems more relevant, appropriate, more contextual. And yes, there is a debate to be had. Is it good that we live in a world surrounded by technology? No, we believe that there's, it's about a human and machine partnership, and these machines are not going to take over human interactions, hopefully, right?
So let me push on that a little bit because one of my go-to lines was we are better at emotional intelligence. And you said I would listen carefully. You said we still are, but you're getting better and better at detecting some of the emotions. So all three of you, it'd be interesting hearing what do you think are the things where the human needs to be in the loop, and for not just today, but looking forward, 5 years, 10 years, where people still need to be involved. When you show them that dashboard. I said you're not having the machines decide on the acquisitions, you have people. Where's that line between judgment and having the machine say, here's, this is not just a green light we should look at, we absolutely have to acquire these people, and I don't care what the human says. I mean, is there some kind of areas where you see the people having a particular advantage? All three of you, I guess, could answer that, but maybe we start with Nicole.
Yeah, I think there's so much potential here, and the power of this, what I love with the debater tool and the emotional side, just companies today are really challenged with all of the disruption that's happening. And I think if you were to ask any CEO and their leadership team, any board and the board of directors, the ability to have an outside view in their meetings when they are tackling really challenging issues is something that's highly valuable today because the issues on the table really are important to debate. You are preparing your company for the future. There's a lot at stake. So having that outside view, I think, is highly valuable.
Both sides.
Bringing your two technologies together would be highly valuable.
Cool. So so this morning several times came up, right, that humans are also still much better at creative, innovative roles, right? But I do also see there a significant value in bringing in an AI system that can help accelerate discovery, accelerate creativity.
So you guys at IBM are working on that as well,
Yes,
right?
yes. I'll give you one example. Many of our researchers, we have about 5,000 people in 21 labs around the globe, are working with clients to co-innovate and really understand their pain points and their dreams and how can we address those. And so Simrise, which is a large company that makes fragrances, like for perfumes, for example, for all kind of products, including real perfumes, but also for soaps or for shampoos, or anything that needs to smell good. And so there are, in the past, they have several perfumers that are employed there, and it takes about a decade.
Humans sniff the fragrances.
Sniff, and also, in fact, we're also working on a digital nose, but I won't talk about that today, and in fact, many companies are. So it's not just the sniffing, it's really the creating of new formulas based on the requirement that the customer, or that is needed. And so a Brazilian company came to them and said, I want to have a new perfume for millennials that is really cool, but not too expensive. And so the perfumer then has to think, okay, how do I do that? There are really thousands of ingredients they can use. There are, in the end, there are kind of like trillions of opportunities.
Trillions of combinations. You take 1,000 factorial, whatever,
Yes, huge amount of opportunities of what the new formula the perfumer can start with. And it's really, today, it's all intuition and expertise, the beginning of this new formula to then fine-tune for the right perfume with your client. And so what we did is we trained an AI algorithm with, I think they had already 100,000 different formulations that the company had made with all the results. Which ones sold well, which ones were good, whatever.
So you think maybe if you combine two really good smelling, or not actually good smelling, good selling perfumes, that might lead to a combination that's even better?
Potentially, but it has to also satisfy these characteristics, right? More and more people say want perfumes, but the ingredients need to be bio or natural ingredients. So they could have whole kind of other things. And so the computer, after the network was trained, and we put in the new requirements, and boom, it gave like, here are 3 formulas you could start from. So it's totally not bound by convention, and by starting with
sort of creative, but it's also kind of a constrained kind of creativity. But I can see, I think there was someone who said that discovery is an import-export business, that you kind of mix together things more than completely think of things new. And that's essentially what you've done here, is you found a way for the machine to do that, to find those new combinations. That's great. I want to give some of the people in the audience to ask some questions, and I want to hear from you about, Gabi, about some of the things that machines, the humans still have some advantages in. But why don't we get some questions from the audience? Go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Dirk Stryker. There's substantial evidence, I think, that in the innovation hubs in this country, where much of the innovation and so forth, MIT and Cambridge and Boston is certainly one. But one of the important elements there is face-to-face contact. Face-to-face contact, not only with people within your company, but also between companies and so forth. And from this springs new ideas, innovation. It's kind of a setting. And I wonder how the machine, how AI can be involved in that sort of process. Can it be helpful? Will it be distracting? It's certainly not something that you want to do just online, but face-to-face involves being there.
Mixing face-to-face with machines to help you, augment you. Who wants to pick up?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to start. I think the way that at least we view it is that the kind of partnership between AI and humans is very much in a supportive role and helping augment. And also to your point, Sophie, is accelerate access to data, maybe help speed up decision making, or maybe give different points of view. That being said, though, that where are the limitations and all that, and maybe heading in that direction, is that there's still tremendous value in human-to-human, simple face-to-face conversation. We've also known that for any of us who've worked at companies with distributed workforces, we also tend to be often more productive and work better when we can spend time together in the same room and working through problems. So yeah, so I wouldn't advocate for AI taking over that. There's still tremendous value in human.
Yeah, what about the downside? So if I was sitting here looking at my phone while we were talking, and I've banned phones and even laptops from my MBA classrooms. When they were first there, I thought, hey, this is great. They're like, checking facts or something, and then I had a guest speaker, and I sat in the back, and I noticed that like half the screens were, email or news or whatever, and I think there's this constant temptation to get distracted. So sometimes is it right for us just to be purely unconnected and face-to-face with no machine augmentation?
I would hope so, yeah.
Well, I think it is, and maybe Eric, to build on your comment and the gentleman's question here, I would just share the points that we hear from our clients. So we serve thousands of companies, public and private, global organizations, and the executives are really asking today for the opportunity to come together with their peer group and to talk about what they are facing in a particular industry group, how they're solving for some of these innovation challenges. And one that we have and that we all spoke about last night that's right around the corner is an example is the Consumer Electronics Show. That's coming up in January, all about innovation, a lot about AI.
How many people go to that?
Almost 200,000.
200,000,
I think it's 180.
all there face-to-face. They could have come in by video, I suppose, but they decided.
They could have, and maybe they'll do more of that. But our client executives have said, look, we're very interested in coming together with peers, so CEOs with CEOs, CIOs together with their group. We break it down by industry sector, boards. Boards are highly interested in curated experiences, so we will take them through CES and then bring them back in peer sessions where they can talk about some of these new innovations and how that might apply.
Let me add one example, because you're also part of it, Eric. So a year ago, the MIT IBM Watson AI Lab was established. We just celebrated our first anniversary, gave everybody nice bottles with neural networks on it. But, and so what we did there is, IBM and many other companies have been funding universities for decades, right? It's like we give money to the university. This lab was very different. We really wanted face-to-face projects that both have IBM researchers and MIT researchers together working on some of the hardest, most difficult problems in AI to solve.
Yeah.
And so that was, from the very beginning, the notion is we're not, these people, the researchers, the scientists have to come together. They have to work it together.
Yeah, there's an interesting point. In addition to the face-to-face, another interesting point that I'm seeing more and more is industry-academia collaboration.
Yes.
It used to be much more siloed. I run something called the Conference on Digital Experimentation with Sinan Aral and Sandy Pentland, and about half the presenters are from company research labs, Facebook, IBM, Microsoft, Google, and the other half are academic, and often jointly authoring papers. So it's really nice to see how academia and industry are now working together much more closely than they used to. And there's a culture in a lot of businesses now, because they're hiring PhDs and even MBAs who have sort of a more quantitative orientation, that flow is a lot smoother. But I see a lot of people lined up here, so we're going to get some quick questions. I think you were next, so give us a quick question, and we'll try and get a couple of you in really quickly. Go ahead.
Sure. My name is John. I'm a grad student here, and my question is about emotion and our ability to detect it. Some years ago, neuroscientist Lisa Feldman Barrett put forth the constructed emotion theory, in which she argues that the physiological signs of emotions are inconsistent at best, and those categories don't actually exist. So I'm curious to know from Affectiva's perspective, what's the current accuracy rate of detecting emotions, and where do you see the ceiling is with respect to that accuracy rate, and whether there is one?
Yeah, and a very simple answer is it depends. It depends on the context, it depends on the use case, so where the technology is being used, and it also depends on what data is being used to actually train the deep learning models. Because there's a lot of companies out there that do emotion detection and claim accuracy near to 100%, But if you train your models on data of people sitting in a lab under perfect lighting conditions, looking straight at a camera, yeah, sure, anyone can build to 100% accuracy. So,
well, 100%, is that really, I mean, so you didn't want to do lie detecting, so people could fake being happy or something like that.
Although our research, and we've analyzed over 7 million faces, our research shows that there's really usually not an incentive to do that.
Yeah, it depends on the context, like you're saying.
Yeah.
If you're bluffing at a poker table, you might want to try to fool people. But if you're just watching a movie or something, there's no real incentive to
let me give you an example too, because some of our classifiers, so some of our models perform in the high 90th percentile, because people always want the discrete numbers. So there
what's
you
the
go.
ground truth?
Human-labeled data.
Human-labeled. So
Absolutely.
Okay.
So the ground truth is human-labeled data, and we use that data to train the algorithms on, but also and then different subsets of human-labeled data to validate. But I will give you this as well to consider, is that high accuracy of high 90th percentile maybe is not always that important when you're doing market research in TV content testing. If it's in mission-critical situations or life-threatening situations, or in that automotive example of ours, you're trying to improve road safety by intervening when a person is falling asleep behind the wheel, then maybe the accuracy needs to be a bit more higher.
And you could also, I imagine, tune it to have more false positives versus false negatives.
Absolutely.
And
our R&D team is constantly experimenting with that. Absolutely.
Great. Really good question.
Yeah,
Thanks.
good question.
Let's get another question.
Quick, I want to follow up on your idea, your earlier comment about effective computing technologies enabling new forms of human-computer symbiosis. There's research done here at MIT that a big driver of group intelligence is social perception, right? That's like the opposite of groupthink, which we often see in the real world. So have you guys thought about using effective computing technology to improve decision-making amongst groups and organizations?
We have not yet done that for the sheer fact that we're a startup, we're a small company, and haven't been able to focus there. I do think that's a massively interesting idea.
You should download one of her apps and start doing it in your lab.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we don't have that at our organization.
Okay.
But good question, thank you. But we haven't done that yet.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, Tom Malone and others have done research that you can take a bunch of high IQ people and put them together in a group, and it could make very bad decisions if they don't work together well, and vice versa. So
I've read about that, but never seen it.
Yeah, that's a fascinating idea.
And in fact, there are systems now, and maybe you're looking at that not only can read the emotions on the face, but just by listening to the people talk, know if the person is introvert or extrovert, and there are other things you can find out from a person's characteristic related to listening.
Our data has actually shown massively interesting things, because we've analyzed these 7 million faces in 87 countries. There's also cultural differences you start seeing.
That's a good point.
Versus collectivist versus
collectivist
yes
versus no in different countries.
Vigilist cultures, things as the polite smile in, for example, Japan. We see that in our data. It's interesting.
That's
but there's more questions.
Yeah.
I see, right?
Another quick question over here.
My name's Ali. I'm a graduate in city planning.
Is the mic on?
It's not on, or...
I don't think the mic is on.
Go ahead, say it again. We can repeat your question. Go ahead.
All right, my name's Ali. I'm a graduate in city planning and a research assistant at the Center of Advanced Urbanism. My question is this. An AI would have access to tremendous amounts of data and facts. What do you have to say about how it can tailor its own narrative and have them justified through this data, especially if the AI is an open-ended system vis-a-vis Isaac Asimov's close-ended rules for...
Do you mean like an AI trying to work adversely by justifying its own narrative in like a evil way?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll jump into that. The AI algorithms are only as good as the data that's being used to train the system, right? So we have to, and a lot of the systems today, whether it's deciding if somebody gets a loan or deciding if somebody gets hired, a lot of the initial AI systems are trained with the old data or the historical data in an organization. So there are examples of where companies are hiring software engineers, it's trained on all the historical data, clearly more men than women are software engineers. The system doesn't know that that's because maybe more men applied or whatever the reason is. But the system could jump to the conclusion that a man is a better software engineer than a woman, which of course we know has nothing to do with the job that has to be done or is irrelevant to this hiring decision. So what has to happen is that all these algorithms have to be checked for bias and make sure that they are not biased. So what we did recently was we open source, you can go find it, AI, the Fairness AI 360 toolkit, where you can have an algorithm that you train, no matter which framework. You can train it on IBM or Amazon, Google, Microsoft. You bring it into this toolkit, and it will immediately assess whether it's biased from age, gender, race, where you live, and then give recommendations on the kind of data to use to unbias your algorithms. So that is very important.
Right.
So if algorithms, they need to, these are some new jobs in the future, they need to be constantly checked, and they need to be constantly also learning and adapting, but making sure.
This is a very key point that people are becoming more and more concerned that we can train these systems, but ultimately they're only as good as the data we put in.
Absolutely.
So if we put in biased data, if people have only been hiring one kind of person or have some prejudgments about who gets parole, and that's used to train the system, it's going to perpetuate, perhaps even amplify some of those biases. So it's very good to have things like the Fairness 360 and other tools to sort of check them. I'm hopeful that ultimately it could lead to more fairness, because humans are biased, and it's hard for us to reverse engineer our own biases. But there's potential that we can do a better job with the algorithms going forward if we're alert
Theoretically,
to it.
that is possible.
I mind if I add one point to that, because I couldn't agree more on the data. That's just table stakes. It's critical. We, on our team, we would also argue it's the team that is also building the algorithms. It's the diversity in the teams, right? Because we all know it's diversity that fosters creativity and innovation, and we build what we know, right? So if we, to use a cliche example, have algorithms built by 20-something white males sitting somewhere in Silicon Valley, then maybe the outcomes will be very similar.
They'll have some blind spots they don't even realize.
Exactly, and it's not purposeful because they're maybe biased, it's because we build what we know.
Yeah, sure.
So diversity in the teams is critical as well.
So I'm looking
Eric,
at the clock. Go ahead,
just going
Nicole,
to
and then we're going to ask our last question. Go ahead.
Absolutely. So another thing to build on both of these comments is the importance of investing in culture in a company today.
Exactly.
That is the key. All of these, the coders, all of the teams are working in an organization that needs to have a strong culture. It's very clear on its ethics, its values, the behaviors that are acceptable within that culture. You're bringing together a lot of individuals with different backgrounds, behavioral scientists, the data scientists, the sociologists, all of these individuals to work together, but you've got to be clear on your culture.
Well, let's build on this lesson. You guys all just provided one lesson. People in the audience want to know better how to build AI-enabled organizations. You guys have been successful in your own organizations. So give us a piece of advice, closing advice, that so tomorrow or Monday morning, that these folks can go have a meeting at 9 a.m. and say, this is how we need to build an AI-enabled organization. Why don't you continue, Nicole, and we can each hear just a word or two of advice from each of you.
Sure, Eric, thank you. And I might take this from the individual perspective. What can each of us do individually? And the number one thing I would say is to invest the time to really understand what is happening in AI. It really doesn't matter your profession. You have to invest the time, really build it into your daily routine and of that of your teams. So very simple examples. How many of you read AI Magazine?
AI Magazine.
How about the O'Reilly newsletters? So, you know, it's a sprinkling, but those are really great examples of build that into your daily routine. Allow for the opportunity to engage as a community in your organizations to talk about this and to talk about the impact to your team in the future. All of this is happening at different levels of pace, right? But I think breaking down the silos and making it okay to talk about how to prepare for the future and individually investing in your own knowledge of it is really key.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. The 2 points I'm going to give, one is related to skills, right? Yes. Making sure as an organization that you invest in the skills of the team members to learn about whether it's AI or whether it's blockchain or whether it's quantum. I mean, all these technologies are coming at us and are truly going to transform all the industries. Like at IBM, in fact, we are being measured to make sure we take 40 hours of education every year on these kind of topics. So that's very important, and lifelong learning. And then hiring and bringing in the people with the right skills to be able to use these AI tools as they are being democratized and becoming easier to use over time, and then embed in your workflow. That's one. But the other big one is to make sure that there is trust and transparency, right? That everybody knows how these AI systems came up with certain decisions, right? Why decisions were made, making sure the systems are explainable, and then the trust is related to understanding the data and the privacy of the data and the individuals. And so this trust, transparency, and making sure that the whole corporation embraces that all the way to the board of directors ultimately is very important.
Thanks.
Yeah, I would add 3 things. So definitely education, especially because there's so much hype and fluff around AI, because every bit of technology today is AI, right? So get yourself educated on what is AI and what is machine learning and what is meaningful in all that. Then also assess for your organization, maybe department by department, what the opportunities might be. And you could do that by also looking at industry best practices. Talk to your peers. How are they using AI in their organization? What are your competitors doing? What are really good examples of applied AI and results, products and technologies that have driven results? So definitely I would spend a lot of time on that. And then lastly, I encourage people not to want to over-engineer. If you have an old-fashioned ruler that does the job, maybe you don't need AI there. Use the damn ruler.
All right, a humble closing comment. Well, thank you so much, Gabi, Nicole, Sophie. Let's give them a round of applause.